What's up, legends, and welcome to my Ladder Season 6 Salmon video. And it actually is Monday today, so happy Meta Monday to everyone. In case you weren't aware, Ladder is a monthly semi-competitive format to play games of Unmatched online with a limited roster of heroes and maps. And so that makes trying to figure out what the meta is for that specific month a very interesting task, because when certain heroes are removed out of the overall roster, certain other heroes get a lot better. So by only having 10 heroes, there's an interesting meta that forms for that month that this Salmon series is all about. Salmon stands for Seasonal Analysis of Ladder Meta and Other Novelties, because with the ever-shifting roster of heroes, the meta in Ladder is constantly shifting, and it's just so much fun for me to try to wrap my head around and talk about. So today we'll be talking about the Season 6, or we'll be giving my predictions for what will happen during Season 6 of Ladder. And as always, we're going to start with my recap and retrospective of the previous month, which was Season 5. So as we can see here, we have both my preseason tier list and my postseason tier list. In general, I'd say it wasn't too bad. Like Electra, Sherlock, Sun Wukong, Sinbad, Ghost Rider, Robin Hood are all roughly in the right spots. It's the Jurassic Park heroes that I was really wrong about, because the T-Rex, she is legit. I think she's going to be absolutely elite in all formats, and she was easily the best hero this month. Sattler, on the other hand, is quite the opposite. She's either not very good or just people haven't figured her out, but either way, people don't really want to play her, and so she just was not good this season, which confused me because she was really good in Season 4, and she was actually one of the biggest counters to the T-Rex, but in spite of that, the T-Rex soared to success this season, and Sattler fell. So that'll be something interesting to look at. Little Red was a little bit better than I thought she'd be, and Bullseye was a little bit worse than I thought he'd be, which makes me really sad, because after a couple seasons in a row of having Bullseye in Ladder, he just does not seem to be the powerhouse I once thought he is, but that's okay, because he's still really good in some niche matchups. It's just he is struggling, as we can see. This season's postseason tier list was a little janky just because it's 2 heroes in all 5 tiers. I think that's because there was very clear segmentation of win rates. As you can see, T-Rex and Electra were just incredible. 65% win rate and up, which is just insane. Sherlock and Little Red with the positive 50s. Sun Wukong and Sinbad with the slightly under 50-50, and then just everyone below them was horrible. Ghost Rider and Sattler coming in at around 35%, and Robin Hood and Bullseye in the mid to low 20s. So yeah, a little bit weird compared to most seasons where there's a lot more mid-tier fighters, but I think given how top heavy this season was, it was supposed to be scumbag ladder, who can beat Sherlock, who's the top dog. It makes sense that the good heroes were great and the bad heroes were not. So let's talk about some of the interesting matchups from this season. First off is T-Rex, who just was dominant all across the board. Her only losing matchup was Electra, who she did not beat, and I believe that was only in 5 games, but that's just interesting to point out from seeing how good she is everywhere else. T-Rex beat Sherlock 58% of the time, which is very interesting, and I think that win rate will actually increase in a format where she has map and position. When she gets to pick what map she's on and gets to go first, I think she'll be a lot better than just when it's split. But keep in mind, split position, or split advantage I should say, against Sherlock, and she's winning 58% of the time. Those are really good numbers for anyone to have. And T-Rex kind of dominates Sun Wukong with an 85% win rate, so that just makes me feel good. Speaking of Sun Wukong, let's talk about his just overall matchup spread because I thought it was very interesting and a little weird. He was winning some of the matchups normally one might think he would lose, and that just struck me as a little interesting. Bullseye, he was beating about 2/3 of the time, which I think Bullseye has like as good of a chance as any supposed counter to him, but uh, apparently Sun Wukong was coming away in that matchup, which was very surprising. Ghost Rider, also similar 2/3 win rate, and Ghost Rider was like supposed to be the Sun Wukong counter because he can pop the clones very easily, but I guess I could see him maybe struggling in that matchup because of how he can't boost his vroom vroom maneuver anymore, so it's a lot easier for Wukong to keep his clones out of the way. And Wukong was also beating Little Red and Robin Hood, which, like, in theory, are two of his worst matchups. But I guess the Wukong players came to play this season. 50% into Sherlock is amazing, and he dominates Sinbad, but loses really hard to Electra and T-Rex. So there's a lot of questions I have about Wukong's trajectory this season, but uh, it seems like he is doing really well into the majority of the roster that isn't the tip of the iceberg, like T-Rex and Electra. Very interesting. Sinbad was kind of Sinbad this season. Interesting that he kind of has a losing matchup into Ghost Rider because he has to approach, which makes it really easy for Ghost Rider to just ping him with his ability. Sinbad handedly beats Little Red, which is a known matchup. Sinbad does really well into some of the limited feint fighters like Little Red and Yanega. Sinbad was not great against Robin Hood, Electra, Sun Wukong, or the T-Rex, but Sinbad somehow was beating Sherlock 60% of the time, which is just something that can happen when you're aggressive and can move really fast and can attack every turn. Very interesting. And then speaking of Sherlock, he had a very interesting season too, because he actually had losing matchups into Electra, Sinbad, and the T-Rex, which is just bizarre that there were three fighters that were consistently beating him for a month. I think Bullseye is one of those fighters that if Bullseye wants to beat Sherlock, he probably has to have both map and position pick. But you could see Sherlock was beating him pretty consistently this season, which is unfortunate as a Bullseye main. Robin Hood, again, just kind of not great. We've been seeing that for a couple seasons now. His only winning matchup this season was against Sinbad. Little Red, uh, solid Electra counter. She beat her every single time they played, although I'm not sure during how many games. Little Red was putting up a fight against Sherlock. 40% isn't bad against Sherlock by any means, but was getting obliterated by Sinbad and Wukong this season. Very, very surprisingly. In an even matchup with the T-Rex, I also think is interesting because Little Red just has so much auto damage, and with T-Rex not having any cancels, you can reliably get that all off, and it's one of those situations where the T-Rex kind of has to kill the Huntsman, and that gives Little Red time to find the card she needs and then actually be able to sequence some nice basket plays together. Yeah, I played that matchup once. It isn't horrible for Little Red. I guess it just depends on how good of a start the T-Rex can get off to. Ghost Rider, just kind of mediocre. He wasn't really beating anyone of value this season. Won every game against Robin Hood, which is pretty expected. And he actually is a decent Electra counter, I found, because of his ability. Electra can't use her hands to approach him, and she also doesn't really want to approach because her health pool is so limited in both the first and second half of the game. You just don't want to give Ghost Rider the chance for those free pings on you. Penance Stare is also really good in that matchup. And just as Electra, you're forced to just run away, and that means Ghost Rider isn't really ever going to be attacked that often, and so he can comfortably play more than he can in some other matchups. And the hand don't have cancels, so Blaze of Glory will always trigger on them, and especially like if Ghost Rider's going first, maybe he can make a big play like that at the beginning. But it's a little unfortunate that Ghost Rider isn't really that great into Wukong, because he was supposed to be the golden child, but he turned out to just be like an equally sized problem. Electra was really good this season. Her only losing matchup was into Little Red, although it was even against Ghost Rider, and I think with more plays and as the community figures out Ghost Rider a little bit more, he should be able to beat Electra maybe like 60% of the time. Sattler, no one really played Sattler this season, and I'm not sure why. If you have any particular reason, maybe you just don't find her interesting or you don't think she's that good, please leave a comment and let me know, because I am very curious at what the community opinion is of her. Although the main thing I want to point out about her was that last season, Season 4, people were using her as a T-Rex counter, and I think they played a bunch of games against each other, and Sattler won like 80% of the time, which is crazy because that's what T-Rex is doing to other people. So you'd think if T-Rex is going to be a mainstay of the meta from now on, that Sattler would have a little bit more magnetism due to her being a T-Rex counter. But I think they only played 4 games this season, and T-Rex won, or they each won 2. So that is a matchup I want to keep my eye on in the future. And Bullseye is also kind of just in the Robin Hood tier of being dog poop. And again, he can't really reliably beat Sherlock without both map and position, is what it seems like. So if we're looking at some of the data for why I ranked, or why I made the tier list like I did, we can see that T-Rex and Electra were clearly a lot better than the other heroes. Their win rates were just insane. T-Rex actually had the highest win rate of any hero in any season of Ladder at over 70%, which is just insane. Given she only had 64 plays, though, I'm not sure how accurate that is necessarily, just because in a normal season of Ladder, like the top played heroes get maybe like 140 plays, which is basically double what she had, and there was a little bit of a drop off just in activity this season. So we'll see what happens next season, especially because there's actually a tournament going on at the same time. But maybe it'll pick back up at some point in the future. And Electra also has just a really dominant win rate at 67%. She's winning 2 out of every 3 games, whereas T-Rex was winning 7 out of every 10, which is just crazy. Now, I did rank T-Rex higher than Electra, even though Electra was the only person that could consistently beat T-Rex, just because T-Rex literally has the highest win rate of any hero ever in Ladder, which is just absolutely phenomenal. Sherlock and Little Red were in the also great category, Sherlock having a very respectable 60% win rate, which I guess doesn't really look that good compared to 66 or 70, but 60 is still excellent. And Little Red, a little bit of a drop off with 53, meaning she was about splitting her matches, but 53 means she was winning a little bit more than she was losing. Wukong and Sinbad were just kind of in a weird gray area this season, where if we're looking at their matchup spreads, they were actually very similar. They both lost hard to Electra. They both handedly beat Little Red. They both were kind of even-ish with Sherlock, and I expect normally Sinbad to have a little bit less of a win rate against Sherlock, just because when you actually math out your win condition as Sherlock, you just need to like play cards and eventually you'll win. And both Wukong and Sinbad were losing pretty hard to the T-Rex. So if we're looking at the 4 heroes above them, they were both losing to T-Rex and Electra, the top 2 heroes this season, handedly beating Little Red and kind of even with Sherlock. But I'm going to give the edge to Wukong just because looking at the other heroes in this season, he did a little bit better than Sinbad. As you can see from their win rates, Wukong having almost like a 7 to 8% higher win rate than Sinbad. Ghost Rider and Sattler were just in this not great tier of like a 35% win rate, uh, which, yeah, it's just like very mediocre. Sattler only got 17 plays, by far the lowest this season, and yeah, it's one of those things where I want to know why. And Bullseye and Robin Hood, just abysmal. 24% win rate for Bullseye, winning barely 1 out of every 4 games. Robin Hood not much better. Yeah, just not good for my boy in blue. Interesting thing to note is that the difference between the highest win rate hero and the lowest win rate hero this season, Bullseye and T-Rex, is the largest it's ever been in Ladder. It's like a 45% difference, which is a very interesting and sad spread for me to point out. So yeah, that's kind of my justifications for this tier list. Let me know what you would have ranked differently. And now we're going to move on to the future of season 6. So I actually had the pleasure of making the reveal video for the roster this season. I would go check that out after this. If you didn't, I do it in like a wrestling announcer introducing the wrestlers. I was yelling and screaming. It was a lot of fun, and hopefully a lot of people were commenting saying they found that style of introducing the roster entertaining. So hopefully I'll get the chance to do that again sometime in the future. Yeah, let me know what you think about that. So the roster this season is Bloody Mary, who is also the People's Champion. She won the poll and was automatically included in Ladder. We also have Bruce Lee, Daredevil, Dracula, InGen or Muldoon, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, King Arthur, Little Red Riding Hood, Sattler, and Sinbad. So this roster kind of is, I think Floam said this in the Discord yesterday. It's kind of the exact opposite of last season. Last season was a lot of the top dogs, and we're trying to see who's the best. This season, because Bloody Mary was the People's Champion, the Ladder Council kind of shifted probably the average goodness of heroes just down a little bit so that it would be more even, I guess. Like if we included Mary in the last roster, she probably would not be very good. So there's just some interesting things I wanted to point out. King Arthur, Little Red, Dr. Jekyll, Muldoon, and I want to say Mary. Yes, Mary. We're all in season 2 of Ladder together. So we kind of have a little bit of a baseline for how they'll interact. Again, that's Mary, Muldoon, Jekyll, Arthur, and Red. We're all in season 2 of Ladder together. And of course, Mary, Jekyll, and Arthur were also in the April Fool's Day Ladder because they are widely known as not being so good. So when I was making my tier list this season, I kind of factored their interactions together. Daredevil, again, I think will be very interesting to see because when he was first in Ladder in season 3, when Hell's Kitchen first came out, people were claiming he was going to be the next Sherlock. He was going to be really good. And then he just turned out to be incredibly mediocre. He had like a mid to low 40s% win rate. And it turns out he's very hard to play and very volatile. So he is someone I'm going to have my eye out for this season, especially because I'm seeing him get a lot of play in the new Arsenal format in all the matches I've seen. So he's someone I've got my eye out for. And also Sattler, because as we've seen, she was like pretty good in season 4 and then just horrible last season. So I I will be paying attention to her and seeing if people actually play her this month. Maybe with less elite competition. Like Sherlock's not in this season. Maybe with less good fighters available, she'll see more play. But yeah, that remains to be seen. So just some things to pay attention to. So yeah, hopefully just with the quality of heroes being slightly less, some lower tier heroes like Jekyll, like poor Jekyll. Hopefully, he can be a little bit better this season and have a chance to shine in this limited roster. The maps this season we have Hero Rot, T-Rex Paddock, Raptor Paddock, Hanging Gardens, and Sunnydale High. So, just some interesting things I want to point out about the maps. Raptor Paddock is Jekyll's best map by far. So, hopefully, he can win the 50-50 die roll and get map pick in a bunch of his games, pick Raptor Paddock, and then use that tri-zone spot on the left to hop around everywhere with pure evil. Bloody Mary, I think, really likes Hero Rot and really likes Hanging Gardens, so she can have her pick of those available. Hopefully she gets map pick as well. InGen, the only ranged hero this season. There is Merlin and the Huntsman as ranged sidekicks, but InGen is the only ranged hero, which should give him a little bit of an advantage. I think he really likes Raptor Paddock, and he can do some things on Sunnydale, maybe, but that's probably where he wants to go, Raptor Paddock. I really haven't played that many games on T-Rex Paddock yet, so that's actually something I'm going to be just picking this season. I'm going to pick T-Rex Paddock and just get to know that map a little bit better. And I'm not sure if anyone else really cares about the maps. It seems like a lot of tight maps this season. Obviously, Hero Rot and Raptor Paddock are some of the smallest in the game, but like the other three maps aren't actually that big when you think about this. This doesn't like really matter, but all 5 of these maps have bullseye spots on them, meaning that bullseye can stand in a spot and be able to hit everywhere else on the map from it. And while bullseye isn't this in this season, so that like doesn't really matter, that thought still persists that other heroes, if they can just move 5 spaces, will be able to attack anywhere on the map. So they're tighter than they seem. Your opponents will all be closer than they appear. I apologize. So yeah, those are just my thoughts on the maps. Let's go into the tier list. This season, I think, will be a lot different than the previous season. I think there will be a lot of like congestion in the middle in that questionable zone, just due to like how good these heroes are. So starting out with the best hero, I think Dracula will be the best hero this season, just because looking at his matchup spread, he should beat InGen. That one is a little close to even, but if you're very patient and you just calculate where you need to get your 14 points of damage from, I think Dracula should beat InGen probably like 60% of the time. Dracula beats Sherlock pretty handedly, also beats Little Red. Uh, the Bruce one can go either way just because the Bruce is Bruce, like in the last game of the grand finals of the Premier Unmatched tournament where Prospero and Bug played this exact matchup on Hero Rot, actually. Bruce can just do some crazy things given the nature of his character. Bloody Mary, we'll talk more about her matchup spread in a second, but Chad thinks this isn't actually horrible for her into Dracula, so we'll see. And the Dracula Daredevil matchup is super fun and pretty even, and I think Dracula should beat everyone below the questionable tier. So yeah, like there aren't really any like counters to Drac this season. Like there's no Beowulf, and I think like at worst he has even matchups. So yeah, my money is on Dracula this season. InGen, I think, will be in the also great category just because he is the only ranged hero this season, and I think he can pretty reliably beat people below him, like Sinbad, Bruce, uh, Little Red. I think isn't actually like the worst pick in the world into Muldoon, but the last season they were together in season 2, I think, uh, InGen won like 80% of the time. So obviously there's a little bit of disconnect there, and I think that's because Little Red is worse in this format just because of the split advantage. She doesn't get map and position, so her opportunities to do the thing or something of that nature are much more limited than they are in a format where she gets both advantages. So I think that hurts her in the Muldoon matchup especially. But uh, yeah, I think Muldoon will have a lot closer matchups, like especially into Daredevil and Jekyll and Hyde, um, and Little Red, of course. But he should be a solid pick just due to his strengths into the rest of the roster. Although I was wrong about that last time Muldoon was in a season of Ladder. I think season 4. I thought he was going to be the best hero, and then it turns out he couldn't really beat T-Rex and was not good because of that. So we'll see if that pick is right. And I don't think there's going to be another hero in the also great category. I did not think one of the 5 questionable heroes was going to really be that much better than the others, because I think Sinbad should pretty much beat everyone below him. Uh, Maybe not Bruce, and maybe not Jekyll, but like he's a Little Red counter. Probably beats Mary because Mary only has 2 feints. Maybe can be aggressive enough to beat Daredevil. Who knows? Sinbad is just like a very solid fighter, but I don't really think he's going to be either of the 2 people above him. So maybe he should be lower, but I just think he has a higher floor than some of the other heroes in questionable. Bruce Lee actually like might be solid into the people above him. The Dracula one can be close based on how the cards play out. In theory, I don't know if the InGen matchup is horrible. All the data says it's pretty InGen favored, but like 1-inch punch for the workers and just a bunch of draw, and like he doesn't mind getting attacked a bunch. Like it seems like he could have a chance in the Muldoon matchup. I think he should beat Sinbad given his ability. You'll never get double attacked if you're not pinned. Your draw is basically even, and even though Sinbad has a bunch of move effects, like you can still pull off some combos, and when you're getting attacked a bunch, you get to actually play your waters. So um, I think Bruce has a chance against the people above him. It's just the people below him that are kind of a problem. I think he has a problem beating Little Red. I think Jekyll and Hyde just stomps him. King Arthur can have some problems for him just because of how squishy Bruce is. Although I do think Bruce should probably beat Mary, and I have no idea about Sattler and Daredevil. Little Red, I actually initially ranked her above Bruce, but just put her down given the historical data. And normally I've been having too much faith in Little Red, I think. She is like a fairly popular fighter, I think, but just recently she hasn't really been getting as many plays as I expect. Like she's probably like 5th or 6th in plays when I'm expecting her to be like 3rd or 4th. And not having split advantage hurts. And historically, the data has shown that she is not good into Muldoon in ladder. And with that top 3 of Dracula, Muldoon, and Sinbad, I am not sure how much success she's going to have this season, especially with Mary and Daredevil also in the mix, who will take advantage of the fact that she doesn't really have that many cancels. So we'll see. I do think she's still a solid pick. It's just a lot of things can go wrong for her this season. Bloody Mary. If there was any season where she was going to be good, it would be now. I talk with Chad a lot, and he always is like, "Oh yeah, Mary's not that bad into Drac. Mary's not that bad into Muldoon. Mary's not that bad into Sinbad." Well, this is your time to shine and prove us all wrong. I I have more faith in her now. I think she is perhaps a little too high, but like she should beat Red pretty consistently, and maybe she can aggro out Daredevil. Just I have faith. Now go prove me right. Of course, me saying I have faith is me putting Mary in the 6th spot out of 10 this season, but that is really good for her. Daredevil. I think Daredevil could be a lot higher. Could be, since he has tools to beat these heroes. Like Mary and Little Red only have 2 cancels. Bruce doesn't really have a lot of health. InGen has workers that you can pop with through adversity. Your Dracula matchup is even. Like, he has ways to beat all these heroes, but also they can beat him as well just by beating him down over the top of his relatively low value blocks. And if he can't get some cycles going or get important cards, or maybe he ends up with ketchup and mustard, like he's gonna have a bad time. I actually played a game as Daredevil in the Arsenal preseason finals against Lollipop Magnum, and I won't spoil what happened, but let's just say in my game as Daredevil, I drew 3 blocks in my first 11 cards and was at 5 health by turn 4. It was not good. He also didn't really do that well in ladder the last time he was here, so I'm being a little bit conservative with my ranking of him, and that's why he's at the bottom of the questionable tier. So I think these 5 heroes could be basically in any order. This was just like what my gut told me, but I do think all 5 of them will be better than the 3 below them, just because Jekyll and Hyde is a potentially good hero that just the way he works can be played around and is a little inconsistent and just historically hasn't really been that good, but he's always been like just on the brim of greatness, and I want him to succeed. I'm just not sure how realistic that will happen. Sattler, I also think, is not really going to do that well this season, just because she was soaring in season 4. She kind of ran out of gas in season 5, and I think now is when she will crash and burn. But I'm not really sure what to say anymore about her, just because people aren't really playing her. So I'm not sure if we'll actually get like an accurate depiction of how good this fighter is. And King Arthur in the Buffy tier, I don't really think I have to explain this, but in theory, he can beat Little Red. So let's go from there. So yeah, those are my thoughts on season 6 of Ladder. Let me know if I'm completely wrong about this or spot on. Spoiler alert, I won't be spot on. But yeah, have fun in Ladder this season. It should be a fun season with just like a less decisive upper tier of heroes. Like, I think anyone could be good this season. I just think Dracula probably has the best chance of being good, or the best, I should say. And yeah, if you're participating in Summer of Legends tournament, I hope you have fun. I wish you luck. I'm participating. I'm gonna get my games done soon. I guess the tournament actually hasn't started for like another week, but yeah, that should be very fun. And when after you play all your matches in that, come back to Ladder and grind with me. And if you're going to Gen Con later this week, I will see you there, and that should be a blast. So yeah, thank you for tuning in to my monthly salmon video. This has been season 6 of Ladder. I wish everyone still listening an absolutely fabulous day. So thank you so much for watching, and as always, like, subscribe, and yeet!